Hello, hello. It's good to see you all. I hope everyone is doing well. And since it's Wednesday, it's time for story time with Dottie. So, pretty exciting. We're finishing our third book tonight in our story time series. So, this is The Horse and His Boy. We've got 3 chapters tonight. And Zulu 1 is here, so the party can really start. And I love you gals and guys the most. You all are the best. You all keep me sane in a crazy world. And you all make things so much better than they would be without you. So, yes, Zulu, I did send you the link. Actually, do you want me to pull up my Skype, and do you need a screenshot of that? Because it's my chat, so I can send screenshots in this. And yeah, look at that. Let's see if you can actually see it. Link to Zulu 1, Mark, link. And Sue did as well, so maybe you just didn't get the link. But we sent them. So let's get rolling, because we got 3 chapters to do tonight instead of just 2. Can't stop screenshots. Nope, not in my chat. And 1 second, let me just make sure. Okay, good. Everyone here has a wrench, so that's good. Hello to Sue Finelli, Zulu 1, Kirk Wilson. It looks like that's it for right now. I'm sure we'll get a few other people filtering in. So we normally have about 10 people here, so I'm sure they'll show up in just a moment. So, chapter 13, The Fight at Anvard. By about 11 o'clock, the whole company was once more on the march, riding westward with the mountains on their left. Corin and Shasta rode right at the rear with the giants immediately in front of them. Lucy and Edmund and Peridin were busy with their plans for the battle, and though Lucy once said, "But where is his Goosecap Highness?" Edmund only replied, "Not in the front, and that's good news enough. Leave Wall alone." Fast Bear, hello. Yes, we just started. You only missed 1 paragraph, so good job. Good job. Shasta told Corin most of his adventures and explained that he had learned all his riding from a horse and didn't really know how to use the reins. Corin instructed him in this, besides telling him all about their secret sailing from Tashbaan. "And where's the Queen Susan?" "At Cair Paravel," said Corin. "She's not like Lucy, you know, who's as good as a man, or at any rate as good as a boy. Queen Susan is more like an ordinary grown-up lady. She doesn't ride to the wars, though she is an excellent archer." Yeah, it's a fan. If it's annoying, I can turn it off. Let me see. 1 sec. Okay, I moved it down to the floor, so maybe not. It's not. I don't think it's rattling against the walls. Let me know if that's better. Okay. You know, I get super overheated when I do story time. Taking his Dottie because she's the bomb. You're not wrong there, Kirk. That's funny. The hillside path which they were following became narrow narrower all the time, and the drop on their right hand became steeper. At last they were going in single file along the edge of the precipice, and Shasta shuddered to think that he had done the same last night without knowing it. But, of course, he thought I was quite safe. That is why the lion kept on my left. He was between me and the edge all the time. Then the path went left and south away from the cliff, and there were thick woods on both sides of it, and they went steeply up and up into the pass. There would have been a splendid view from the top if it were open ground, but among all those trees you could see nothing, only every now and then some huge pinnacle of rock above the treetops, and an eagle or two wheeling high up in the blue air. They smell battle, said Corin, pointing at the birds. They know we're preparing a feed for them. Shasta didn't like this at all. When they had crossed the neck of the pass and come a good deal lower, they reached more open ground, and from here Shasta could see all Archenland, blue and hazy, spread out below him, and even, he thought, a hint of the desert beyond it. But the sun, which had perhaps 2 hours or so to go before it set, was in his eyes, and he couldn't make things out distinctly. Here the army halted and spread out in a line, and there was a great deal of rearranging. A whole detachment of very dangerous-looking talking beasts, whom Shasta had not noticed before, and who were mostly of the cat kind, leopards, panthers, and the like, went padding and growling to take up their positions on the left. The giants were ordered to the right, and before going there, they all took off something they had been carrying on their backs and sat down for a moment. Then Shasta saw that what they had been carrying and were now putting on were pairs of boots, horrid, heavy, spiked boots which came up to their knees. Then they sloped their huge clubs over their shoulders and marched to their battle position. The archers, with Queen Lucy, fell to the rear, and you could first see them bending their bows and then hear the twang-twang as they tested the strings. And wherever you looked, you could see people tightening girths, putting on helmets, drawing swords, and throwing cloaks to the ground. There was hardly any talking now. Rosina Bear, what's up? Doc Michael, hello. Let me finish this paragraph. Give me one sec. It was very solemn and very dreadful. I'm in for it now. I really am in for it, thought Shasta. Then there came noises far ahead, the sound of many men shouting, and a steady thud, thud, thud. Give me 1 second. Yep, there we go. Add moderator. There we go. Get all my people with the wrenches there. Eric DeLeon, what's happening? Let me make sure. Oh, yeah, this one there. Everyone gets a wrench. You get a wrench. You get a wrench. Everyone gets a wrench. Awesome. Okay. All my people. So glad you're all here. A battering ram, whispered Corin. They're battering the gate. Even Corin looked quite serious now. Why doesn't King Edmund get on? He said. I can't stand this waiting about. Chilly, too. Shasta nodded, hoping he didn't look as frightened as he felt. The trumpet at last. On the move now trotting, the banner streaming out in the wind. They had topped a low ridge now, and below them the whole scene suddenly opened out. A little many-towered castle with its gate toward them. No moat, unfortunately. But of course the gate shut and the portcullis down. On the walls they could see, like little white dots, the faces of the defenders. Down below, about 50 of the Calormenes, dismounted, were steadily swinging a great tree trunk against the gate. But at once the scene changed. The main bulk of Rabadash's men had been on foot, ready to assault the gate, but now he had seen the Narnians sweeping down the ridge. There is no doubt those Calormenes are wonderfully trained. It seemed to Shasta only a second before a whole line of the enemy were on horseback again, wheeling round to meet them, swinging toward them. Is it cooler in the house today? It is a little bit cooler. It's still a little bit muggy, but it's not bad. But I went on a really long walk today and then picked a bunch of blackberries. And so I got like pretty warm from that. And then this light that I have on my computer, it always makes it warmer in here when I'm reading. And then my hat as well. And a lot of factors make it warm in here, but I have my fan on, and it's not too shabby in here right now. Actually, quite pleasant. So. And now a gallop. The ground between the two armies grew less every moment. Faster, faster, all swords out now, all shields up to the nose, all prayers said, all teeth clenched. Shasta was dreadfully frightened, but it suddenly came into his head. If you funk this, you'll funk every battle all your life, now or never. Blackberries are the best food in the world. The best is a warm blackberry pie with some real good vanilla ice cream. Yes, I have to get some vanilla ice cream tomorrow when I'm at work, and then tomorrow evening I'm making a blackberry cobbler. So I'm most excited for that. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And the blackberry season has only just begun, so they get really good through the end of August and then through September. So I am so excited that I picked quite a few today, like probably a good three or four cups full. Yeah, I picked a lot. So excited. But when at last the two lines met, he had really very little idea of what had happened. There was a frightful confusion and an appalling noise. His sword was not clean out of his hand pretty soon, and he'd got the reins tangled somehow. Then he found himself slipping. Then a spear came straight at him. As he ducked to avoid it, he rolled right off his horse, bashed his left knuckles terribly against someone else's armor, and then... But it is no use trying to describe the battle from Shasta's point of view. He understood too little of the fight in general, and even of his own part in it. The best way I can tell you what really happened is to take you some miles away to where the hermit of the southern march sat gazing into the smooth pool beneath the spreading tree, with Bree and Win and Erebus beside him. I'll be there in 24 hours to eat some with you. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I make really good blackberry cobbler. Just saying. And I wish I could come over. Yeah, I wish that I could just have a baking day for all my friends and feed you all the goodies that I like to make. So, yeah, it's definitely the horse's fault, Zulu. That the horse just was one of the non-talking horses, and he couldn't just fucking listen. For it was in this pool that the hermit looked when he wanted to know what was going on in the world outside the green walls of his hermitage. There, as in a mirror, he could see at certain times what was going on in the streets of cities far farther south than Tashbaan, or what ships were putting into Red Haven in the remote Seven Isles, or what robbers or wild beasts stirred in the great western forest between Lantern Waste and Telmar. And all this day he had hardly left his pool, even to eat or drink, for he knew that great events were on foot in Archenland. Erebus and the horses gazed into it too. They could see it was a magic pool. Instead of reflecting the tree and sky, it revealed cloudy and colored shapes moving, always moving in its depths, but they could see nothing clearly. The hermit could, and from time to time he told them what he saw. A little while before Shasta rode into his first battle, the hermit had begun speaking like this. Tell Eric to fill a 5-gallon bucket full of blackberries and you will make a cobbler. Yeah. You bring the blackberries, I will make the cobbler. Any day, all day, for all eternity. Right? I'm perfectly fine losing weight, but I know that I will always be a fat girl at heart, and I will never stop making stuff like blackberry cobbler. So they're not black or berries. Yeah, exactly, Zulu. Bring the truth in here and ruin all our dreams. Whatever they are delicious and they are wonderful in cobbler. They stain your fingers purple. Yep, my hand, it's not purple anymore, but it definitely was earlier. Worth it. 100% worth it. I see 1, 2, 3 eagles wheeling in the gap by Stormness Head. One is the oldest of all eagles. He would not be out unless battle was at hand. I see him wheel to and fro, peering down, sometimes at Anvard and sometimes to the east behind Stormness. I see now what Rabadash and his men have been so busy at all day. They have felled and lopped a great tree, and they are now coming out of the woods carrying it as a ram. They have learned something from the failure of last night's assault. He would have been wiser if he had set his men to making ladders, but it takes too long and he is impatient. Fool that he is. He ought to have ridden back to Tashban as soon as the first attack failed, for his whole plan depended on speed and surprise. Now they are bringing the ram into position. King Loon's men are shooting hard from the walls. 5 Calormene have fallen, but not many will. They have their shields above their heads. Rabadash is giving his orders now. With him are his most trusted lords, fierce Tarkans from the eastern provinces. I can see their faces. There is Corridan of Castle Torment, and Azru, and Clamish, and Ilgamuth of the Twisted Lip, and a tall Tarkan with a crimson beard. By the main, my old master Anradin, said Bree. Shh, said Aravis. Now the ram has started. If I could hear as well as I could see, what a noise that would make. Stroke after stroke, and no gate can stand it forever. But wait, something up by Stormness has scared the birds. They're coming out in masses. And wait again, I can't see yet. Ah, now I can. The whole ridge up on the east is black with horsemen. If only the wind would catch that standard and spread it out. They're over the ridge now. Whoever they are. Aha, I see the banner now. Narnia! Narnia is the Red Lion. They're in full career down the hill now. I can see King Edmund. There's a woman behind among the archers. Oh, what is it? Asked Wynne breathlessly. All his cats are dashing out from the left of the line. Cats, said Aravis. You destroyed the blackberry bushes? Oh, goodness. I mean, they grow like a weed here in Washington and most of the Pacific Northwest, and oh, they are a delight. I want to have a arched pathway that has thornless blackberries on it. Oh yeah, I think that would just be pure heaven. Be able to walk under your archway and collect all the blackberries. Though if they're on a trellis, you wouldn't necessarily need thornless ones because you wouldn't have to be digging through the endless thorns to get to the berries if they're growing up and over a trellis. So pretty much any blackberries on an archway would be definitely part of my dream. So yeah. Great cats, leopards and such, said the hermit impatiently. I see. The cats are coming round in a circle to get at the horses of the dismounted men. A good stroke. The Calormene horses are mad with terror already. Now the cats are in among them. But Rabadash has reformed his line and has 100 men in the saddle. They're riding to meet the Narnians. There's only 100 yards between the two lines, only 50. I can see King Edmund. I can see the Lord Paradan. There are two mere children in the Narnian line. What can the king be about to let them into the battle? Only 10 yards. The lines have met. The giants on the Narnian right are doing wonders, but one's down, shot through the eye, I suppose. The center is all a muddle. I can see more on the left. There are the two boys again. Lion alive! One is Prince Corin. The other, like him, is two peas. It's your little Shasta. Corin is fighting like a man. He's killed a Calormene. I can see a bit of the center now. Rabadash and Edmund most met. Rabadash and Edmund almost met them, but the press has separated them. What about Shasta? Said Aravis. Yes, they make thornless blackberries. You have to, like buy them from stores specifically. The ones that grow wild are, they have thorns, but yeah, you can buy thornless blackberries. But I don't know, I kind of think it's one of those things of like, well, if nature grew them to have thorns, then they probably had to alter it in some way to make it so it doesn't have thorns. Like anything that's seedless, like if stuff grows on its own, it's going to grow to have seeds. So that's kind of a altering it when you force something to grow and not produce seeds. So I don't know. I'll probably just get blackberries and encourage them to go over a trellis, so make do. What about Shasta? Said Aravis. Oh, the fool! Groaned the hermit. Poor brave little fool. He knows nothing about this work. He's making no use at all of his shield. His whole side's exposed. He hasn't the faintest idea what to do with his sword. Oh, he's remembered it now. He's waving it wildly about. Nearly cut off his own pony's head, and he will in a moment if he's not careful. It's been knocked out of his hand now. It's mere murder sending a child into the battle. He can't live 5 minutes. Duck, you fool. Oh, he's down. Killed? Asked 3 voices breathlessly. How can I tell? Said the hermit. The cats have done their work. All the riderless horses are dead or escaped now. No retreat for the Calormenes on them. Now the cats are turning back into the main battle. They're leaving on the ram's men. The ram is down. Oh, good, good. The gates are opening from the inside. There's going to be a sortie. And the first 3 are out. It's King Lune in the middle, the brothers Dar and Darin on each side of him. Behind them are Tran and Shar, and Cole with his brother Colin. There are 10, 20, nearly 30 of them by now. The Calormene line is being forced back upon them. King Edmund is dealing marvelous strokes. He's just slashed Corridon's head off. Lots of Calormenes have thrown down their arms and are running for the woods. Those that remain are hard pressed. The giants are closing in on the right, cats on the left, King Lune from their rear. The Calormenes are a little knot now, fighting back to back. Your Tarkin's down, Bree. Lune and Azru are fighting hand to hand. The king looks like he's winning. The king is keeping it up well. The king has won. Azru's down. King Edmund's down. No, he's up again. He's at it with Rabadash. They're fighting in the very gate of the castle. Several Calormenes have surrendered. Darin has killed Ilgamuth. I can't see what's happened to Rabadash. I think he's dead, leaning against the castle wall, but I don't know. Clamish and King Edmund are still fighting, but the battle is over everywhere else. Clamish has surrendered. The battle is over. The Calormenes are utterly defeated. When Shasta fell off his horse, he gave himself up for lost. But horses, even in battle, tread on human beings very much less than you would suppose. After a very horrible 10 minutes or so, Shasta realized suddenly that there were no longer any horses stamping about in the immediate neighborhood, and that the noise, for there was still a good many noises going on, was no longer that of a battle. He sat up and stared about him. even as little as he knew of battles, he could soon see that the Archenlanders and Narnians had won. The only living Calormenes he could see were prisoners. The castle gates were wide open, and King Lune and King Edmund were shaking hands across the battering ram. From the circle of lords and warriors around them, there arose a sound of breathless and excited, but obviously cheerful conversation. And then suddenly it all united and swelled into a great roar of laughter. Shasta picked himself up, feeling uncommonly stiff, and ran toward the sound to see what the joke was. A very curious sight met his eyes. The unfortunate Rabadash appeared to be suspended from the castle walls. His feet, which were about 2 feet from the ground, were kicking wildly. His chain shirt was somehow hitched up so that it was horribly tight under the arms and came halfway over his face. In fact, he looked just as a man looks if you catch him in the very act of getting into a stiff shirt that is a little too small for him. As far as could be made out afterward, and you may be sure the story was well talked over for many a day, what had happened was something like this. Early in the battle, one of the giants had made an unsuccessful stamp at Rabadash with his spiked boot. Unsuccessful because it didn't crush Rabadash, which was what the giant had intended, but not quite useless because one of the spikes tore the chainmail just as you or I might tear an ordinary shirt. So Rabadash, by the time he encountered Edmund at the gate, had a hole in the back of his hauberk. And when Edmund pressed him back nearer and nearer to the wall, he jumped up on a mounting block and stood there, raining down blows on Edmund from above. But then, finding that this position, by raising him above the heads of everyone else, made him a mark for every arrow from the Narnian bows, he decided to jump down again, and he meant to look and sound, no doubt. For a moment he did look and sound very grand and very dreadful as he jumped, crying, "The bolt of Tash falls from above." But he had to jump sideways because the crowd in front of him left him no landing place in that direction. And then, in the neatest way you could wish, the tear in the back of his hauberk caught on a hook in the wall. Ages ago, this hook had had a ring in it for tying horses to, and there he found himself like a piece of washing hung up to dry, with everyone laughing at him. There's a picture of Rabadash hanging from the wall. Quite the fool. "Let me down, Edmund," howled Rabadash. "Let me down and fight me like a king and a man, or if you are too great a coward to do that, kill me at once." "Certainly," began King Edmund, but King Lune interrupted. "By your majesty's good leave," said King Lune to Edmund, "not so." Then turning to Rabadash, he said, "Your Royal Highness, if you had given that challenge a week ago, I'll answer for it. There was no one in King Edmund's dominion, from the High King down to the smallest talking mouse, who would have refused it. But by attacking our castle of Anvard in time of peace without defiance sent, you have proved yourself no knight, but a traitor, and one rather to be whipped by the hangman than to be suffered to cross swords with any person of honor. Take him down, bind him, and carry him within till our pleasure is further known." Strong hands wrenched Rabadash's sword from him, and he was carried away into the castle, shouting, threatening, cursing, and even crying. For though he could have faced torture, he couldn't bear being made ridiculous. In Tashbaan, everyone always had taken him seriously. At that moment, Corin ran up to Shasta, seized his hand, and started dragging him toward King Lune. "Here he is, father, here he is!" cried Corin. "Aye, and here thou art at last," said the king in a very gruff voice, "and hast been in the battle clean contrary to your obedience. A boy to break a father's heart. At your age, a rod to your breech were fitter than a sword in your fist. Ha! But everyone, including Corin, could see that the king was very proud of him. Chide him no more, sire, if it please you, said the Lord Darren. His Highness would not be your son if he did not inherit your conditions. It would grieve your Majesty more if he had reproved for the opposite fault. Well, well, grumbled the king, we'll pass it over for this time. And now, what came next surprised Shasta as much as anything that had ever happened to him in his life. He found himself suddenly embraced in a bear-like hug by King Loon and kissed on both cheeks. Then the king set him down again and said, stand here together, boys, and let all the court see you. Hold up your heads. Now, gentlemen, look on them both. Has any man any doubts? And still Shasta could not understand why everyone stared at him and at Corin, nor what all the cheering was about. Chapter 14. How Bree Became a Wiser Horse. He must now return to Erebus and the horse. We must now return to Erebus and the horses. The hermit, watching his fool, was able to tell them that Shasta was not killed or even seriously wounded, for he saw him get up and saw how affectionately he was greeted by King Loon. But as he could only see, not hear, he did not know what anyone was saying, and once the fighting had stopped and the talking had begun, it was not worthwhile looking in the pool any longer. Next morning, while the hermit was indoors, the three of them discussed what they should do next. I've had enough of this, said Gwyn. The hermit has been very good to us, and I'm very much obliged to him, I'm sure. But I'm getting as fat as a pet pony, eating all day and getting no exercise. Let's go on to Narnia. Oh, not today, ma'am, said Bree. I wouldn't hurry things. Some other day, don't you think? We must see Shasta first and say goodbye to him and apologize, said Erebus. Exactly, said Bree with great enthusiasm. Just what I was going to say. Oh, of course, said Wynne. I expect he is in Anvard. Naturally, we'd look in on him and say goodbye, but that's on our way. And why shouldn't we start at once? After all, I thought it was Narnia we all wanted to get to. I suppose so, said Erebus. She was beginning to wonder what exactly she would do when she got there, and feeling a little lonely. Of course, said Bree hastily, but there's no need to rush things, if you know what I mean. No, I don't know what you mean, said Wynne. Why don't you want to go? Boo-hoo, muttered Bree. Well, don't you see, ma'am, it's an important occasion, returning to one's own country, entering society, the best society. It is so essential to make a good impression, not perhaps looking quite ourselves yet, eh? Wynne broke out into a horse laugh. It's your tail, Bree. I see it all now. You want to wait till your tail's grown again. And we don't even know if tails are worn long in Narnia. Really, Bree, you're as vain as that Tarkina in Tashbaan. You are silly, Bree, said Erebus. By the lion's mane, Tarkina, I'm nothing of the sort, said Bree indignantly. I have a proper respect for myself and for my fellow horses, that's all. Bree, said Erebus, who was not very interested in the cut of his tail. I've been wanting to ask you something for a long time. Why do you keep swearing by the lion and by the lion's mane? I thought you hated lions. So I do, answered Bree, but when I speak of the lion, of course I mean Aslan, the great deliverer of Narnia, who drove away the witch and the winter. All Narnians swear by him. You played the wardrobe. But is he a lion? No, of course not, said Bree in a rather shocked voice. All the stories about him in Tashban say he is, replied Erebus. And if he isn't a lion, why do you call him a lion? Well, you'd hardly understand that at your age, said Bree, but I was only a little foal when I left, so I don't fully understand it myself. Bree was standing with his back to the green wall while he said this, and the other two were facing him. He was talking in rather a superior tone, and his eyes half shut. That was the way that was why he didn't see the changed expression in the faces of Win and Erebus. They had good reason to have open mouths and staring eyes, because while Bree spoke, they saw an enormous lion leap up from the outside and balance itself on top of the green wall. Only it was a brighter yellow, and it was bigger and more beautiful and more alarming than any lion they had ever seen, and at once it jumped down inside the wall and began approaching Bree from behind. It made no noise at all, and Win and Erebus couldn't make any noise themselves, no more than if they were frozen. No doubt, continued Bree, when they speak of him as a lion, they only mean he's as strong as a lion, or, to our enemies, of course, as fierce as a lion, or something of that kind. Even a little girl like you, Erebus, must see that it would be quite absurd to suppose he is a real lion. Indeed, it would be disrespectful. If he was a lion, he'd have to be a beast just like the rest of us. Why? And here Bree began to laugh. If he was a lion, he'd have 4 paws and a tail and whiskers. Oh, help! For just as he said the word whiskers, one of Aslan's had actually tickled his ear. Bree shot away like an arrow to the other side of the enclosure and there turned. The wall was too high for him to jump, and he could fly no farther. Erebus and Win both started back. There was about a second of intense silence. Then Win, though shaking all over, gave a strange little neigh and trotted across to the lion. Please, she said, you're so beautiful. You may eat me if you like. I'd sooner be eaten by you than fed by anyone else. Dearest daughter, said Aslan, planting a lion's kiss on her twitching velvet nose. I knew you would not be long in coming to me. Joy shall be yours. Then he lifted his head and spoke in a louder voice. Now, Bree, he said, you poor, proud, frightened horse, draw near. Nearer still, my son. Do not dare, not to dare. Touch me, smell me. Here are my paws. Here is my tail. These are my whiskers. I am a true beast. Aslan, said Bree in a shaken voice, I'm afraid I must be rather a fool. Happy the horse who knows that while he is still young, or the human either. Draw near, Erebus, my daughter. See, my paws are velveted. You will not be torn this time. This time, sir, said Erebus. It was I who wounded you, said Aslan. I am the only lion you met in all your journeyings. Do you know why I tore you? No, sir. The scratches on your back, tear for tear, throb for throb, blood for blood, were equal to the stripes laid on the back of your stepmother's slave because of the drugged sleep you cast upon her. You needed to know what it felt like. Yes, sir. Please, ask on, my dear, said Aslan. Will any more harm come to her by what I did? Child, said the lion, I am telling you your story, not hers. No one is told any story but their own. Then he shook his head and spoke in a lighter voice. Be merry, little ones, he said. We shall meet soon again. But before that you will have another visitor. Then, in one bound, he reached the top of the wall and vanished from their sight. Strange to say, they felt no inclination to talk to one another about him after he had gone. They all moved slowly away to different parts of the quiet grass, and there paced to and fro, each alone, thinking. About half an hour later, the two horses were summoned to the back of the house to eat something nice that the hermit had got ready for them, and Erebus, still walking and thinking, was startled by the harsh sound of a trumpet outside the gate. "Who is there?" said Erebus. "His Royal Highness Prince Kor of Archenland," said a voice from outside. Erebus undid the door and opened it, drawing back a little to let the strangers in. Two soldiers with halberds came first and took their stand at either side of the entry. Then followed a herald and the trumpeter. "His Royal Highness Prince Kor of Archenland desires an audience of the Lady Erebus," said the herald. Then he and the trumpeter drew aside and bowed, and the soldiers saluted, and the prince himself came in. All his attendants withdrew and closed the gate behind them. The prince bowed, and a very clumsy bow for a prince it was. Erebus curtsied in the Calormene style, which is not at all like ours, and did it very well, because, of course, she had been taught how. Then she looked up and saw what sort of person this prince was. She saw a mere boy. He was bareheaded, and his fair hair was encircled with a very thin band of gold, hardly thicker than a wire. His upper tunic was of white cambric as fine as a handkerchief, so that the bright red tunic beneath it showed through. His left hand, which rested on his enameled sword hilt, was bandaged. Erebus looked twice at his face before she gasped and said, "Why, it's Shasta!" Shasta all at once turned very red and began speaking very quickly. "Look here, Erebus," he said, "I do hope you won't think I'm got up like this, and the trumpeter and all, to try and impress you, or to make out that I'm different, or any rot of that sort, because I'd far rather come in my old clothes, but they're burnt now, and my father said—" "Your father?" said Erebus. "Apparently King Loon is my father," said Shasta. "I might really have guessed it, Corin being so like me. We were twins, you see. Oh, and my name isn't Shasta, it's Kor." "Kor is a nicer name than Shasta," said Erebus. "Brothers' names run like that in Archenland," said Shasta, "or Prince Kor, as we must now call him, like Dare and Darren, Cole and Colin, and so on." Kor," said Erebus. "No, shut up, there's something I've got to say at once. I'm sorry I've been such a pig, but I did change before I knew you were a prince. Honestly, I did. When you went back and faced that lion—" "It really wasn't going to kill you at all, that lion," said Kor. "I know," said Erebus, nodding. Both were still and solemn for a moment, as each saw that the other knew about Aslan. Suddenly Erebus remembered Kor's bandaged hand. "I say," she cried, "I forgot. You've been in a battle. Is that a wound?" "A mere scratch," said Kor, using for the first time a rather lordly tone. But a moment later he burst out laughing and said, "If you want to know the truth, it isn't a proper wound at all. I only took the skin off my knuckles, just as any clumsy fool might do without going near a battle." "Still, you were in the battle," said Erebus. "It must have been wonderful." "It wasn't at all like what I thought," said Kor. "But Kor, you haven't told me anything yet about King Loon and how he found out who you were." "Well, let's sit down," said Kor, "for it's rather a long story. And by the way, father's an absolute brick. I'd be just as pleased, or very nearly, at finding he's my father even if he wasn't a king. Even though education and all sorts of horrible things are going to happen to me. But you want the story. Well, Corin and I were twins. And about a week after we were both born, apparently, they took us to a wise old centaur in Narnia to be blessed or something. Now this centaur was a prophet, as a good many centaurs are. Perhaps you haven't seen any centaurs yet. There were some in the battle yesterday. Most remarkable people, but I can't say I feel quite at home with them yet. I say, Erebus, there are going to be a lot of things to get used to in these Narnian countries. Yes, there are, said Erebus, but get on with the story. Well, as soon as he saw Corin and me, it seems the centaur looked at me and said, a day will come when that boy will save Archenland from the deadliest danger in which ever she lay. So, of course, my father and mother were very pleased, but there was someone present who wasn't. This was a chap called Lord Barr, who had been father's Lord Chancellor, and apparently he'd done something wrong. Bezzling or some word like that. I didn't understand that part very well, and father had had to dismiss him. But nothing else was done to him, and he was allowed to go on living in Archenland. But he must have been as bad as he could be, for it came out afterward that he had been in the pay of the Tisroc and had sent a lot of secret information to Tashban. So as soon as he heard I was going to save Archenland from a great danger, he decided I must be put out of the way. Well, he succeeded in kidnapping me. I don't exactly know how, and rode away down the winding arrow to the coast. He'd had everything prepared, and there was a ship manned with his own followers lying ready for him, and he put out to sea with me on board. But father got wind of it, though not quite in time, and was after him as quickly as he could. The Lord Barr was already at sea when father reached the coast, but not out of sight, and father was embarked in one of his own warships within 20 minutes. It must have been a wonderful chase. They were 6 days following Barr's galleon and brought her to battle on the 7th. It was a great sea fight. I heard a lot about it yesterday evening. From 10 o'clock in the morning till sunset. Our people took the ship in the end, but I wasn't there. The Lord Barr himself had been killed in the battle, and one of his men said that early that morning, as soon as he saw he was certain to be overhauled, Barr had given me to one of his knights and sent us both away in the ship's boat, and that boat was never seen again. But of course, that was the same boat that Aslan, he seems to be at the back of all the stories, pushed ashore at the right place for Arshish to pick me up. I wish I knew that knight's name, for he must have kept me alive and starved himself to do it. I suppose Aslan would say that was part of someone else's story, said Erebus. I was forgetting that, said Cor. And I wonder how the prophecy will work out, said Erebus, and what the great danger is that you're to save Archenland from. Well, said Cor rather awkwardly, they seem to think I've done it already. Erebus clapped her hands. Why, of course, she said. How stupid I am, and how wonderful. Archenland can never be in much greater danger than it was when Rabadash had crossed the Arrow with his 200 horse, and you hadn't yet gotten through with your message. Don't you feel proud? I think I feel a bit scared, said Cor. And you'll be living in Anvard now, said Erebus rather wistfully. Oh, said Cor, I'd nearly forgotten what I came about. Father wants you to come and live with us. He says there's been no lady in the court. They call it the court, I don't know why, since mother died. Do, Erebus, you'll like father and Corin. They're not like me. They've been properly brought up. You needn't be afraid that... Oh, stop it, said Erebus, or we'll have a real fight. Of course I'll come. Now, let's go and see the horses, said Cor. Hey, Tom Budis. There was a great and joyous meeting between Bree and Cor, and Bree, who was still in a rather subdued frame of mind, agreed to set out for Anvard at once. He and Wynne would cross into Narnia on the following day. All four bade an affectionate farewell to the hermit and promised that they would soon visit him again. By about the middle of the morning they were on their way. The horses had expected that Erebus and Cor would ride, But Kor explained that except in war, where everyone must do what he can do best, no one in Narnia or Archenland ever dreamed of mounting a talking horse. This reminded poor Bree again of how little he knew about Narnian customs and what dreadful mistakes he might make. So while Wynne strolled along in a happy dream, Bree got more nervous and more self-conscious with every step he took. "Buck up, Bree," said Cor. "It's far worse for me than for you. You're going to be educated, and I shall be learning reading and writing and heraldry and dancing and history and music, while you'll be galloping and rolling on the hills of Narnia to your heart's content." "But that's just the point," groaned Bree. "Do talking horses roll? Supposing they don't? I can't bear to give it up. What do you think, Wynne?" "I'm going to roll anyway," said Wynne. "I don't suppose any of them will care 2 lumps of sugar whether you roll or not." "Are we near that castle?" said Bree to Cor. "Round the next bend," said the prince. "Well," said Bree, "I'm going to have a good one now. It may be the last. Wait for me a minute." It was 5 minutes before he rose again, blowing hard and covered with bits of bracken. "Now I'm ready," he said in a voice of profound gloom. "Lead on, Prince Cor, Narnia and the North." But he looked more like a horse going to a funeral than a long-lost captive returning to home and freedom. Chapter 15, Rabadash the Ridiculous. The next turn of the road brought them out from among the trees, and there, across green lawns, sheltered from the north wind by the high wooded ridge at its back, they saw the castle of Anvard. It was very old and built of a warm, reddish-brown stone. Before they had reached the gate, King Loon came out to meet them, not looking at all like Erebus's idea of a king and wearing the oldest of old clothes, for he had just come from making a round of the kernels with his huntsmen and had only stopped for a moment to wash his doggy hands. But the bow with which he greeted Erebus as he took her hand would have been stately enough for an emperor. "Little lady," he said, "we bid you very heartily welcome. If my dear wife were still alive, we could make you better cheer, but could not do it with a better will, and I am sorry that you have had misfortunes and been driven from your father's house, which cannot but be a grief to you. My son Cor has told me all about your adventures together and all your valor." "It was he who did all that, sir," said Erebus. "Why, he rushed at a lion to save me." "What's that?" said King Loon, his face brightening. "I haven't heard that part of the story." Then Erebus told it, and Cor, who had very much wanted the story to be known, though he felt he couldn't tell it himself, did enjoy it so much as he had expected, and indeed felt rather foolish. But his father enjoyed it very much indeed, and in the course of the next few weeks told it to so many people that Cor had wished it had never happened. Then the king turned to Wynne and Bree and was just as polite to them as to Erebus, and asked them a lot of questions about their families and where they had lived in Narnia before they had been captured. The horses were rather tongue-tied, for they weren't yet used to being talked to as equals by humans. Grown-up humans, that is. They didn't mind Erebus and Cor. Presently, Queen Lucy came out from the castle and joined them, and King Loon said to Erebus, "My dear, here is a loving friend of our house, and she has been seeing that your apartments are put to rights for you better than I could have done it." "You'd like to come and see them, wouldn't you?" said Lucy, kissing Erebus. They liked each other at once and soon went away together to talk about Erebus's bedroom and Erebus's boudoir and about getting clothes for her and all the sort of things girls do talk about on such an occasion. After lunch, which they had on the terrace. It was cold birds and a cold game pie and wine and bread and cheese. King Loon ruffled up his brow and heaved a sigh and said, "Hey ho, we have still that sorry creature Rabadash on our hands, my friends, and must needs resolve what to do with him." Lucy was sitting on the king's right and Erebus on his left. King Edmund sat at one end of the table, and the Lord Darren faced him at the other. Dar and Peridin and Cor and Corin were on the same side as the king. "Your Majesty would have a perfect right to strike off his head," said Peridin. "Such an assault as he made puts him on a level with assassins." "It is very true," said Edmund, "but even a traitor may mend. I have known one that did," and he looked very thoughtful. "To kill this Rabadash would go near to raising war with the Tisroc," said Darren. "A fig for the Tisroc," said King Loon. "His strength is in numbers, and numbers will never cross the desert. But I have no stomach for killing men, even traitors, in cold blood. To have cut his throat in battle would have eased my heart mightily, but this is a different thing." "By my counsel," said Lucy, "your Majesty shall give him another trial. Let him go free on straight promise of fair dealing in the future. It may be that he will keep his word." "Maybe apes will grow honest, sister," said Edmund, "but by the lion, if he breaks it again, may it be in such time and place that any of us could swap off his head in clean battle." "It shall be tried," said the king, and then to one of the attendants, "Send for the prisoner, friend." When you read these science fiction books like this, the whole time you're reading, are you seeing and imagining the story as you read it in your mind also? Yes, I can see this story like I'm watching a movie, basically. So it's like I'm the narrator of a movie, and while I'm watching the movie. And yeah. I have heard that some people, they don't visualize books when they hear them, like they just don't see pictures like a movie. And also I've heard that some people don't dream in color, which I dream in color. And yeah, anytime I read especially fantasy books, I see the story unfolding in my mind. So Rabadash was brought before them in chains. To look at him, anyone would have supposed that he had passed the night in a noisome dungeon without food or water, but in reality he had been shut up in quite a comfortable room and provided with an excellent supper. But as he was sulking far too furiously to touch the supper, and had spent the whole night stamping and roaring and cursing, he naturally did not now look his best. "Your Royal Highness needs not to be told," said King Loon, "that by the law of nations as well as by all reasons of prudent policy, we have as good right to your head as ever one mortal man had against another. Nevertheless, in consideration of your youth and the ill nurture, devoid of all gentleness and courtesy, you will have doubtless had in the land of slaves and tyrants, we are disposed to set you free, unharmed, on these conditions. First, that—" He fell asleep. I mean, I guess that's probably a good thing, because doesn't that mean that my voice is relaxing? So I guess that's a good thing. Zulu 1 is probably asleep too, so it's all good. You all will listen and catch up eventually. It's fine. Whatever. "Curse you for a barbarian dog," spluttered Rabadash. "Do you think I will even hear your conditions? Faugh! You talk very largely of nurture, and I know not what. It's easy to a man in chains. Ha! Take off these vile bonds, give me a sword, and let any of you who dares then debate with me. Nearly all the lords sprang to their feet, and Corin shouted, Father, can I box him, please? Peace, your majesties, my lords, said King Loon. Have we no more gravity among us than to be so chafed by the taunt of a pajock? Sit down, Corin, or shalt leave the table. I ask your highness again to hear our conditions. I can see the little girl, and you come out as you read these stories. So cute to see. You have a good, pure, childlike heart. I'm not saying you're perfect, but I can see it. Well, thank you very much. Yes, definitely not perfect, but I enjoyed story time quite a bit. They're just such good stories, and to have good friends here who enjoy it as well. It's just great. I mean, I would rather have you 7 to 10 awesome people here than, 5,000 horrible people who are going to say that they hate the book or, just whatever. But I feel very blessed that you all enjoy coming in and having story time with me. Lost my train of thought there. But yeah, it's kind of bittersweet that we're finishing the book tonight, because when you're in a good story, you never want it to end. And yeah, but such a good story. We get to go on to yet another good story. So yeah. I hear no conditions from barbarians and sorcerers, said Rabadash. Not one of you dare touch a hair of my head. Every insult you have heaped on me shall be paid with oceans of Narnian and Archenlandish blood. Terrible shall the vengeance of the Tisroc be, even now. But kill me, and the burnings and torturings in these northern lands shall become a tale to frighten the world 1,000 years hence. Beware, beware, beware. The bolt of Tash falls from above. It's a nice break from what's going on. Thank you. Yes, thank you for being here, Barbara. And I completely agree. That is kind of the thing that I want to do on my channel, is you can know that you can come here and just have an enjoyable time. Nobody has to be triggered or crazy or just talking about, bullshit and how awful things are, which there's a time and a place for that. But I like to give everyone a place to be that is just a place to be that doesn't hate you. You can come to my channel and get something good, and I want you to be here and I want you to enjoy your time. So can't wait to see the map behind you of Mordor and Middle Earth. Yes, that's going to be exciting. I was thinking about that map today, actually. So we still have a couple more books of the Narnia map, and hopefully eventually I can get my computer far enough back that you can see more of the map. But yeah, right now my computer is pretty close to me. But I am going to look at an RV this weekend on Saturday that I will hopefully be purchasing and living in. So I'm very excited for that. So yeah, send out good thoughts that everything works out for me getting this RV, because it's like a step that I really need to make happen. Sue says, love listening to you read and reading and responding comments. Well, you people all matter to me, so your comments are important. Thank you. You are awesome and wonderful. So are you, Doc Michael. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Zulu One. It was nice to talk to you earlier, even though my phone died and then I was locked out of the house. But it was a funny locked out, not a malicious locked out. So anyway. how much for the RV. It's $6,500, and it's a drivable one, and I don't remember the brand, but it kind of, I mean, it is an RV, but it kind of almost looks like one of those like van buses that would like drive, uh, like you'd like go pick up seniors from their nursing home and you take them to the store. Kind of looks like one of those van trucks, but he said that it's got a bathroom, a kitchenette, multiple beds, and the engine has been rebuilt. And yeah, a bear is selling it. So I found him on the Beartaria Times app, and yeah, he said that he's going to make bread when I go over, and another couple bears are going to be there. And he said that when I'm ready, he'll give me some chickens. And if I want a rabbit, he'll give me a rabbit. So yeah, pretty freaking awesome bear. Super excited. But yeah, keep me in your good thoughts that I get that, because that will be a really great step towards what I am trying to go to, because getting an apartment is pointless, and I can't currently like buy something flat out. But he said that he would work with me on a payment plan. We can make a contract and pay him monthly. Also looking for another job, because my job is ending. It will be over in October. And so I'm looking for a job that is not insane and not requiring nonsense for me to work there. So, dear universe, please provide me with these things. Yes. Where was I? A bolt of tash falls from above. Does it ever get caught on a hook halfway? Asked Corin. Shame, Corin, said the king. Never taunt a man save when he is stronger than you. Then, as you please. Oh, you foolish Rabadash, sighed Lucy. Next moment, Cora wondered why everyone at the table had risen and was standing perfectly still. Of course, he did the same himself, and then he saw the reason. Aslan was coming among them, though no one had seen him coming. Rabadash started as the immense shape of the lion paced softly in between him and his accusers. Rabadash, said Aslan, take heed. Your doom is very near, but you may still avoid it. Forget your pride, what have you to be proud of, and your anger, who has done you wrong, and accept the mercy of these good kings. Then Rabadash rolled his eyes and spread out his mouth into a horrible, long, mirthless grin like a shark, and wagged his ears up and down. Anyone can learn how to do this if they take the trouble. He had always found this very effective in Kellerman. The bravest had trembled when he made these faces, and ordinary people had fallen to the floor, and sensitive people had often fainted. But what Rabadash hadn't realized is that it is very easy to frighten people who know you can have them boiled alive the moment you give the word. The grimaces didn't look at all alarming in Archenland. Indeed, Lucy only thought Rabadash was going to be sick. Demon, 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 shrieked the prince. I know you. You are the foul fiend of Narnia. You are the enemy of the gods. Learn who I am, horrible phantasm. I am descended from Tash, the inexorable, the irresistible. The curse of Tash is upon you. Lightning in the shape of scorpions shall be rained on you. The mountains of Narnia shall be ground into dust. Have a care, Rabadash, said Aslan quietly. The doom is nearer now. It is at the door. It is lifted the latch. Let the skies fall, shrieked Rabadash. Let the earth gape. Let blood and fire obliterate the world. Be sure I will never desist till I have dragged to my palace by the hair the barbarian queen, the daughter of dogs. The hour has struck, said Aslan, and Rabadash saw, to his supreme horror, that everyone had begun to laugh. They couldn't help it. Rabadash had been waggling his ears all the time, and as soon as Aslan said, "The hour has struck," the ears began to change. They grew longer and more pointed, and soon were covered with gray fur. And while everyone was wondering where they had seen ears like that before, Rabadash's face began to change too. It grew longer and thicker at the top and larger eyed, and the nose sank back into the face, or else the face swelled out and became all nose, and there was hair all over it, and his arms grew longer and came down in front of him till his hands were resting on the ground. Only they weren't hands now, there were hooves, and he was standing on all fours, and his clothes disappeared, and everyone laughed louder and louder because they couldn't help it. For now, what had been Rabadash was simply and unmistakably a donkey. Rabadash is a donkey. I hope you read like this sometimes to your future hubby. I think I am more likely to continue reading to all you fine people than I am of finding a husband. So, yeah. I don't know what I'm doing in dating, and at this point, I think I'm just okay with that. Right now, I just really want to get my RV and move towards whatever land I'm going to be on. So that seems to be a better course for me than going through yet more men. Who knows? We shall see. We shall see. The terrible thing was that his human speech lasted just a moment longer than his human shape, so that when he realized the change was coming over him, he screamed out, "Oh, not a donkey! Mercy, if it were even a horse! Hee-haw!" And so the words died away into a donkey's bray. "Now hear me, Rabadash," said Aslan. "Justice shall be mixed with mercy. You shall not always be an ass." At this, of course, the donkey twitched its ears forward, and that also was so funny that everybody laughed all the more. They tried not to, but they tried in vain. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to put myself down. It's just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I haven't found the person for me, and I don't really know where to look or how to look, or I don't know. I've just been having an interesting dating adventure. I really don't know. I went on a date on Friday, and it was quite nice. We went to a paint and wine night, and I painted a nice cherry blossom and moon picture, and it was quite fun. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see it going wherever. I really don't know. But yeah, I'm just very much going with the flow. And thanks for being here, Tom. See you on the flat side. But yeah, I'm just pretty much enjoying my single time and not trying to force anything, not trying to be anything but me. And yeah, it just, dating really is what it is. I mean, if something good comes my way, that's great, but not something that I'm going to hold my breath for. So we shall just see. You have appealed to Tash, said Aslan, and in the temple of Tash you shall be healed. You must stand before the altar of Tash in Tashban at the great autumn feast this year, and there, in the sight of all Tashban, your ass's shape will fall from you, and all men will know you for Prince Rabadash. But as long as you live, if ever you go more than 10 miles away from the great temple in Tashban, you shall instantly become again as you are now, and from that second change there will be no return. The world is full of retards. I don't think a truer statement has ever been said, Zulu. There was a short silence, and then they all stirred and looked at one another as if they were waking from sleep. Aslan was gone, but there was a brightness in the air on the grass and a joy in their hearts, which assured them that he had been no dream. And anyway, there was the donkey in front of them. King Loon was the kindest-hearted of men, and on seeing his enemy in this regrettable condition, he forgot all his anger. Your Royal Highness, he said, I am most truly sorry that things have come to this extremity. Your Highness will bear witness that it was none of our doing. And of course, we shall be delighted to provide your Highness with shipping back to Tashban for the treatment which Aslan has prescribed. You shall have every comfort which your Highness's situation allows, the best of the cattle boats, the freshest carrots and thistles. But a deafening bray from the donkey and a well-aimed kick at one of the guards made it clear that these kindly offers were ungratefully received. And here, to get him out of the way, I'd better finish off the story of Rabadash. He, or it, was duly sent back by boat to Tashban and brought into the temple of Tash at the great autumn festival, and then he became a man again. But of course, 4,000 or 5,000 people had seen the transformation, and the affair could not possibly be hushed up. And after the old Tisroc's death, when Rabadash became Tisroc in the place, he turned out the most peaceable Tisroc Calorman had ever known. This was because, not daring to go more than 10 miles from Tashban, he could never go on a war himself, and he didn't want his Tarkans to win fame in the wars at his expense, for that is the way Tisrocs get overthrown. But though his reasons were selfish, it made things much more comfortable for all the smaller countries round Calorman. His own people never forgot that he had been a donkey during his reign, and to his face he was called Rabadash the Peacemaker, but after his death and behind his back he was called Rabadash the Ridiculous, and if you look him up in a good history of Calorman, try the local library, you will find him under that name. And to this day in Calorman schools, if you do anything unusually stupid, you are very likely to be called a second Rabadash. Yeah, everyone lives super far away from me. It's kind of infuriating. Like, I mean, at least I could drive to see Sue within, a day's drive, but still, everybody is super far away from me. It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, at Anvard, everyone was very glad that he had been disposed of before the real fun began, which was a grand feast held that evening on the lawn before the castle, with dozens of lanterns to help the moonlight, and the white flowed, and tales were told, and jokes were cracked, and then silence was made, and the king's poet, with 2 fiddlers, stepped out into the middle of the circle. Erebus and Coram prepared themselves to be bored, for the only poetry they knew was the Calormene kind, and you know now what that was like. But at the very first scrape of the fiddles, a rocket seemed to go up inside their heads, and the poet sang the great old lay of fair Alvin, and how he fought the giant Pyre and turned him into stone, and that is the origin of Mount Pyre. It was a two-headed giant, and won the Lady Loam for his bride. And when it was over, they wished it was going to begin again. And though Bree couldn't sing, he told the story of the fight of Zalandra. And Lucy told again that all had, except Erebus and Cor, heard it many times, but they all wanted it again. The tale of the wardrobe and how she and King Edmund and Queen Susan and Peter the High King had first come into Narnia. 2,510 miles away from Seattle, not that far. Maybe getting an RV. Yeah, you just never know. Might be traveling the country. Who knows? I mean, I still do have to stay like in Washington because my son's dad is here. Man, yeah. I wish that I could just throw the kid in the RV and just travel to wherever. Travel to where the people are. So 300,000 miles in a rebuilt engine. Yeah, I don't know how many miles it has on it, but yeah, he said the engine has been totally redone, and it pretty much just needs some cosmetic work inside. So super excited for that. I found some really cool stick-on tiles for the kitchen and the bathroom, and I don't know how the rest of the RV will come out, but I'm really excited to redo it. Redo whatever RV I end up with, but yeah. And presently, as was certain to happen sooner or later, King Loon said it was time for young people to be in bed. And tomorrow, Cor, he added, shalt come over and all the castle with me and see the estras and mark all its strength and weaknesses, for it will be thine to guard when I'm gone. But Corin will be the king then, father, said Cor. Nay, lad, said King Loon, thou art my heir, the crown comes to thee. But I don't want it, said Cor. I'd far rather. 'Tis no question what thou wantest, Cor, nor I either. 'Tis in the course of the law. But if we're twins, we must be the same age. Nay, said the king with a laugh, one must come first. Art Corin's elder by full 20 minutes, and his better too, let's hope, though that's no great mastery. And he looked at Corin with a twinkle in his eyes. But, father, couldn't you make whichever you like to be the next king? No, the king's under the law, for it's the law that makes him a king. Hast no more power to start away from thy crown than any sentry from his post. Barbara is Cupid, shooting her arrow into everyone. Oh dear, said Cor, I don't want to at all. And Corin, I am most dreadfully sorry. I never dreamed my turning up was going to chisel you out of your kingdom. Hurrah, hurrah, said Corin. I shan't have to be king. I shan't have to be king. I'll always be a prince. It's princes that have all the fun. And that's truer than thy brother knows, Cor, said King Loon, for this is what it means to be king, to be first in every desperate attack and last in every desperate retreat, and when there's hunger in the land, as must be now and then in bad years, to wear finer clothes and laugh louder over a scantier meal than any man in your land. When the two boys were going upstairs to bed, Cor again asked Corin if nothing could be done about it, and Corin said, if you say another word about it, I'll knock you down. It would be nice to end the story by saying that after that the two brothers never disagreed about anything again, but I am afraid it would not be true. In reality, they quarreled and fought just about as often as any other two boys would. And all their fights ended, if they didn't begin, with Cor getting knocked down. For though, when they had both grown up and become swordsmen, Cor was the more dangerous man in battle, neither he nor anyone else in the North countries could ever equal Corin as a boxer. That was how he got his name of Corin Thunderfist, and how he performed his great exploit against the lapsed Bear of Stormness, which was really a talking bear, but had gone back to wild bear habits. Corin climbed up to its lair on the Narnian side of Stormness one winter day when the snow was on the hills and boxed it without a timekeeper for 33 rounds. 33. 33. They just can't stop putting it in everything. And at the end, it couldn't see out of its eyes and became a reformed character. Erebus also had many quarrels, and I'm afraid even fights with Cor, but they always made it up again, so that years later, when they were grown up, and they were so used to quarreling and making up again, that they got married so as to go on doing it more conveniently. And after King Loon's death, they made a good king and queen of Archenland, and Ram the Great, the most famous of all the kings of Archenland, was their son. Bree and Win lived happily to a great age in Narnia, and both got married, but not to one another. And there weren't many months in which one or both of them didn't come trotting over the pass to visit their friends at Anvard. And that, my friends, is the end of The Horse and His Boy. It's such a good book. That is such a good story. Oh, goodness. I can't believe it. We finished our third book. It's just spicy Sarah. Hello. Draw back your bow and let your arrow flow straight to the river. Start from nobody but me. 10 points. Anybody who knows who sung that song. I do not. I'm terrible. Yeah, I don't think that 33 is an evil number. I just think it's funny when it comes up because it just gets slipped in everywhere and is used for so much stuff. But yeah, I mean, things aren't just like good or bad. Most things just are, and then good or bad people assign meaning to them. So it's all good. But I just thought it was funny that he fought a bear and he fought a bear 33 times, whatever. Funny. So, yeah, that was the end of The Horse and His Boy. That's definitely one of my favorite books in that series. It's so enjoyable, and it's just a really good time. It's lighthearted, but lots of good action and lots of plot twists, and oh, it's just such a good book. So, the next book, I don't remember which one it is. I think it's Prince Caspian. Pretty sure. Maybe. Might not be. Might be. Wait. Oh yeah, it is Prince Caspian. Okay. So yeah, the next book will be Prince Caspian, which we will be starting next week. But yeah. Is that a diamond I see in your nose? Yeah, it's just like a little like rose stud. I've been having just a time with my nose ring, and it got stuck. I was like doing something and it turned funny, and then it like wouldn't go back through the hole. So then I finally got the ring out, and then I just popped this stud in to just let it. I don't know what it needed to do, but sometimes you just have to pop a stud in there and just let it like chill out, because I had like been messing with it a lot trying to get the ring to go back through. Wouldn't go through, and so I just have the stud in there until it's like not annoyed anymore. But I will be putting the ring back in there shortly because I much prefer the nose ring, and um, having a ring is the reason that I got my nose pierced. So yeah. Um, and if you are all unaware, which you should be aware of it, but Flattoberfest is going on in Spartanburg, South Carolina on October 23rd and 24th. And Karen B is also hosting a Flat Earth singles meet and mingle thing, whatever. I will be at that, and I'm hoping that the airlines are not awful. I still need to buy my plane ticket, and I'm hoping that I can fly to Flattoberfest because I will be unemployed at the beginning of October, and yeah, I kind of want to spend like a week and a half over there. But yeah, literally the biggest concern is the airlines. So you get a crew and drive. It is 4 days with no stops, and I just don't know. That's a really long time, and road trips can bring out good and bad in people. But yeah, I think I will try to make it to South Carolina. I'm just going to pay for the ticket for the meeting and stay either way one day, or maybe try to stay in the car overnight. I don't want to spend $800. Yeah, I would spend so much traveling. If I traveled by myself, it would be so expensive. And obviously, if I traveled with people, we could share the cost. But yeah, I'm not positive who over here would want to drive. I'm sure that there is people who would be down for it, but yeah, I am going to think that it's all going to work out, and I will be getting to Oktoberfest. So I will get there one way or another. And it'd be cool if I had my RV already, because then it wouldn't really matter driving over there. Just like take a long road trip and you already have a place to sleep, because that's a huge expense, though gas is a huge expense too. And if you go on a road trip, make sure you bring lots of snacks with you, like lots of fruit and veggies and stuff like that, because eating out is the other really big expense. And obviously, pretty much anywhere that you find to eat out is not going to be that good for you. So, yeah, I mean, I still have time. I'm still like 2 months out, a little over 2 months. And I believe that it's going to work out just perfectly, and I will be there. And I will see all the lovely people, and it's going to be just really awesome. So I'm super excited. Yep, make sandwiches and bring a cooler with stuff. Yep, exactly. And yeah, we will see what happens. But I feel like it's going to be awesome either way. So take no shit, give no fucks. Just get it done. Make the good happen. So yeah, super excited for Oktoberfest. But if you all want to send out good vibes for my RV, I go to see it on Saturday. So hopefully that all works out, that I will be getting that. And also, I could use some good vibes as to where I should work for my next job. You gonna stay with some other ladies in a house or hotel? I do not know. I have a couple friends over there that I'm going to talk to about bouncing around houses for, a few days, and then once like people start arriving for Flattoberfest, like it's all gonna work out that someone will have a couch or a bed or anything, whatever, for me to sleep on. So that's gonna all work out. It's just getting there that I have to make work out currently. So everything's gonna work out though. It's gonna be awesome. But yeah, if you want to just like send me good vibes that I can find a job that is not awful, that would be great. And not going to comply to nonsense. So definitely has to be a job that is not requiring nonsense. I would love to do something online, but I'm not really sure what. I mean, pretty much like do whatever. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's all gonna work out. I'm gonna figure it out. So, yeah. Give her money too. Yeah. Well, anyway, I am gonna get out of here because I have to go to bed soon, and I really wanted to do some yoga before I go to bed. So, I thank you all for being here. Let me give some shout outs to all the people. Eric DeLeon, Sue Finelli, Spicy Sarah, Barbara Zena Bear, Basque Bear, Kirk Wilson, scrolling, Zulu One, Tom Buddhist, pretty sure he left. Still, he can have his shout out. He was here. Doc Michael, I think that's everyone. If I didn't shout you out, leave a comment down below and we'll get you right now on the way out. But yeah, I thank you all for joining me for story time. It's a great honor to be able to read to you wonderful people. If you would like to support me in my channel, there's that, Cashapp, $Dottiesdomes, paypal.me/finding Dottie, P.O. Box 1598, Shelton, Washington 98584. All of those, you can support me in my channel. Just support me in my RV dreams. Get me to Flattoberfest. Buy me 35 acres. Whatever you feel like doing. But anyway, I thank you all for being here. I love you all. You're the best gals and guys on the plane. And Doc Michael, good night. Is that a post box? It is in the description. Yeah, that's my P.O. box. As if you want to send a letter, if you want to send seeds, if you want to send silver, if you want to send something cool you made, you can do all that through a P.O. box. You can't send cool shit through PayPal or Cash App. I mean, money is always the right size, but if it's between money and something cool that you made or something that I can grow and eat, hands down rather have that. So yeah, P.O. Box 1598, Shelton, Washington 98584. And everything is in the description. So yeah, I am gonna get out of here. So much love. You're the best people on the plane. Blessed travels along the realm. And I'll see y'all on the flat side. Much love.